Today marks the start of the 2026 MLB regular season, and in honor of that, this video will focus on one player from all 30 teams who could break out this year. The criteria to be considered a successful breakout will be a player accumulating 2 or more WAR for the first time in their career. There are chapters throughout this video, so that if you are just interested in a specific team or division, you can skip right to that section. Before we jump into each team's analysis, leave a comment on any players you think will have a breakout 2026 season, and while you're at it, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you can keep up with all of the new baseball content on the channel this year. The Toronto Blue Jays are coming off of an American League pennant and heartbreaking loss in Game 7 of the World Series. Going into the 2026 season, they still have a strong core consisting of a number of players that have already reached the 2 WAR threshold. That ultimately leaves 2 main candidates to select as the Blue Jays' 2026 breakout player. The first is Cody Ponce, who the Blue Jays signed to a 3-year, $30 million contract in free agency after his incredible season in the KBO last year, where he struck out 252 batters across 180 innings to the tune of a 1.89 ERA. One of the main reasons for his career resurgence was due to his ability to increase his fastball velocity while also discovering a kick changeup that ran him a 46.6% whiff rate. FanGraphs projects him to have exactly 2 WAR next season, with some obvious regression from his numbers in the KBO simply due to the higher level of competition he will face in the MLB. The second Blue Jays candidate is Trey Yesavage, who was a big reason Toronto was able to make their deep postseason run. There really is not anyone like Yesavage in the league. His combination of arm angle and arsenal is extremely funky and not something that hitters typically see. His uniqueness proved to be difficult for batters throughout the playoffs. He tallied 11 strikeouts across 5 1/3 hitless innings in his postseason debut against the Yankees, and in Game 5 of the World Series against the Dodgers, he struck out 12 batters across 7 innings. Last season, the Blue Jays had 2 players reach the 2 WAR threshold for the first time in their career. Tyler Heineman put up 2.1 WAR as Toronto's backup catcher, and Addison Barger put up 2.2 WAR. The Blue Jays could have 2 breakout players again this season in Ponce and Yesavage, but the pick here is Yesavage. FanGraphs has him projected at 1.9 WAR, but I'm taking the over here, and I think he could push towards 2.6 WAR in 2026. Blue Jays starters ranked 15th in innings pitched, 20th in ERA, and 24th in FIP last season, and although the rotation should be much better, Yesavage will have the opportunity to maintain a top 5 role across the entire season. The New York Yankees have a couple of interesting candidates for their 2026 breakout player. The first being Cam Schlittler, who, like Trey Yesavage, put his name on the map during the 2025 postseason, pitching one of the most impressive series-clinching games in MLB history. Schlittler has an electric fastball that averaged 98 miles per hour and ranked in the 95th percentile last season in fastball velocity. His pitch mix overall is quite interesting as he throws over 75% fastballs with his four-seam, sinker, and cutter combination. He accumulated 1.3 WAR last year in just 73 innings during the regular season. FanGraphs projects him for 1.6 WAR and 121 innings in 2026, which I think could be underselling him a bit in a Yankees rotation where he should claim the 4th spot. On the position player side of things, Jason Dominguez has a chance to make an impact and finally have his breakout season. He is still only 23 years old, and as a switch-hitting outfielder should still get plenty of playing time throughout the regular season. His raw tools are impressive, ranking in the 80th percentile in bat speed, 84th percentile in sprint speed, and 92nd percentile in arm strength. The biggest roadblock for Dominguez is the depth of the Yankees' top 3 outfielders, with Aaron Judge, Cody Bellinger, and Trent Grisham all likely ahead of him on the depth chart. Because of this, FanGraphs projects Dominguez to only accumulate 0.3 WAR across 26 games and 112 plate appearances next season. Last year, the Yankees had 2 breakout players. The first was Will Warren, who put up 2.1 WAR across 162 innings in a Yankees rotation that really needed someone to step up with Garrett Cole out for the season. Their other breakout player was Ben Rice, who crushed baseballs on his way to accumulating 3 WAR in his first full season as a big leaguer. As for 2026, the safe pick here is clearly Schlittler, as it appears he's earned himself a consistent spot in the rotation after what he accomplished throughout the 2025 postseason. With that being said, Dominguez is going to be the choice for the Yankees breakout player. Although his projections across the board are quite bearish, I think he can get to a 2.6 WAR and finally solidify himself as an everyday major leaguer. When taking a look at the Red Sox earlier in the offseason, Peyton Tolley and Connolly Early appeared to be top candidates for a breakout season. With the amount of pitching depth the Red Sox have acquired this offseason though, it is going to be hard for either one of them to carve out enough innings in the rotation to reach the 2 WAR threshold, which leaves us with 2 position players. Marcelo Meyer is likely to be the starting third baseman, and this could be his best opportunity to break out. Meyer was the Red Sox first round pick in 2021, and at just 23 years old still has a lot of potential. He has shown promise with his bat speed and hard hit rate, but the biggest concern is his injury history, which has caused him to miss significant time across the last few seasons. Romy Gonzalez, another infield candidate, was the Red Sox primary platoon bat against left-handed pitching last season. Gonzalez has an opportunity to slot into more than just a platoon role this season though, as he is currently projected to be Boston's best second base option. In 2025, Gonzalez had a 162 WRC+ and a 409 WOBA against left-handed pitchers, which both ranked top 10 in the MLB. On top of that, he had a 95 WRC+ versus right-handed pitchers, which is above league average for right-handed hitters. He can truly hit against either-handedness, and because of that, the Red Sox should feel confident using him more as an everyday player. Gonzalez has an impressive profile as a hitter. In 2025, he ranked in the 99th percentile with a 57.3% hard hit rate and had an average exit velocity of 93.3 miles per hour, which was in the 95th percentile. Looking back at 2025, the Red Sox had 4 breakout players. Ceddanne Rafaela accumulated 3.8 WAR on his way to winning the Gold Glove in center field. Roman Anthony reached 2.7 WAR and met expectations as baseball's #1 prospect. Carlos Narvaez also reached 2.7 WAR as the Red Sox primary catcher, and Garrett Whitlock accumulated 2.2 WAR, solidifying himself as one of the best relievers in the MLB. As for 2026, Romy Gonzalez is the pick for the Red Sox breakout player with a WAR projection of 2.4. FanGraphs projects Gonzalez to accumulate 1.4 WAR and 364 plate appearances, but without a clear starting role in 2025, he managed to put up 1.5 WAR and 341 plate appearances. With Alex Bregman going to Chicago and question marks on the infield depth chart, Gonzalez has a chance to push 450 plus plate appearances in 2026 on his way to a breakout campaign. The Tampa Bay Rays are a team that often find themselves leveraging players who fit this exact criteria for a breakout. Last year alone, they had 4 players reach the 2 WAR mark for the first time in their career. Junior Caminero led the way as one of the biggest breakout players of 2025, hitting 45 home runs after a previous career high of 6. In total, he accumulated 4.6 WAR, an improvement of nearly 4 wins. Jonathan Aranda was the Rays' other position player to break out with a WAR total of 2.5. On the pitching side of things, Shane Baz and Ryan Pepiot also managed to accumulate 2 WAR for the first time in their career. As for 2026 breakouts, the most likely pitching candidate on the Rays is Joe Boyle. Boyle is a flame-throwing righty whose fastball velocity was in the 96th percentile last season to go with a whiff rate and strikeout rate in the 77th and 74th percentile. The biggest downside to Boyle is his high walk rate, but in his first season with the Rays he did cut it by 5%. Chandler Simpson should compete to be the starting left fielder with his elite speed and contact skills. That is essentially where the value ends with him though, since he has little to no power upside and questionable defense despite his speed. In 2025, Simpson had a .295 average and 44 stolen bases in 441 plate appearances, but only managed to amass 0.7 WAR and finished with an 88 WRC+. At just 22 years old, Rays top prospect Carson Williams appears to be in line to claim the starting shortstop role in 2026 with a scouting report that says he has the potential to be an elite defender. Aside from his defensive prowess, Williams has above average bat speed, which helped him hit 20 plus home runs in the minor leagues in 2024 and 2025. The biggest concern offensively with Williams is his hit tool, which has caused him to run a high strikeout rate up to this point in his career. In 2024, he had a 28% strikeout rate in AA, and in 2025, he had a 34% strikeout rate in AAA, along with a 41% strikeout rate in just over 100 plate appearances at the MLB level. Despite the strikeout concerns, Williams is going to be the selection for the Rays' 2026 breakout player. FanGraphs projects him to accumulate 1.4 WAR and 434 plate appearances across 100 games. Although he might not necessarily have a Caminero-esque breakout, his playing time upside along with his defensive abilities and offensive potential have me thinking he could reach 2.8 WAR in his first full season as a big leaguer. In 2025, the Baltimore Orioles had two players meet the breakout criteria. Dean Kramer accumulated 2.6 WAR and stepped up in an Orioles rotation that truly lacked impact arms, ranking 24th in ERA and 25th in FIP. Ryan O'Hearn was the other breakout player, putting up 2.4 WAR before the Orioles traded him to San Diego, where he accumulated another 0.6 WAR and finished the season with a WAR total of 3. As for 2026, the Orioles' top two prospects, Samuel Basallo and Dylan Beavers, are likely to be the best candidates to break out. In 137 plate appearances with Baltimore last season, Beavers displayed strong plate discipline, chasing just under 19% and walking at a 19% clip. Although both of those numbers are likely to regress over the course of a full MLB season, he was able to maintain a 16% walk rate across 418 plate appearances in 2025 at the AAA level. In total, he hit .304 with a .420 on-base percentage and a .515 slugging percentage in AAA throughout 2025, good for a .935 OPS. Beavers also ranked in the 89th percentile in sprint speed last season, which should help him provide value on the bases and in the outfield defensively. Samuel Basallo, the Orioles' #1 prospect, also made his MLB debut last year. Basallo has impressive bat speed with big power upside. He hit 23 home runs in AAA last season and added 4 more with Baltimore after being called up in August. It is still up in the air whether or not Basallo is MLB ready at just 21 years old. He did not perform great defensively at the catcher position, which could limit a lot of his playing time to DH, especially with Adley Rutschman currently being better defensively. Basallo also ran a high strikeout and whiff rate at the MLB level, but that comes in a relatively small sample of 118 plate appearances. Although Basallo could absolutely break out in 2026, Beavers is going to be the pick for the Orioles breakout player. His profile as a high on-base percentage hitter who could potentially provide plus defense in right field with speed gives me confidence that he could surpass his FanGraphs WAR projection of 1.5 and push towards the 2.9 WAR mark in 2026 as the starting right fielder for the Baltimore Orioles. The Philadelphia Phillies did not have any players last season meet the breakout requirements set for this series. Most of this was due to the strength of their lineup consisting of a number of players who had already reached the 2 WAR threshold previously in their career. It appears that the Phillies will once again have a number of veteran players take up a bulk of the playing time this season. That leaves only a few options for the Phillies' 2026 breakout player. Philadelphia's top pitching prospect, Andrew Painter, is really the only option on the pitching side for a breakout. He was able to strike out 111 batters in just over 106 innings with a 5.26 ERA in AAA last season. That being said, Painter has no major league experience at this point in his career, and at just 22 years old, it feels too early for him to take on a big enough workload that would enable him to reach 2 or more WAR this season. That leaves Philly's top-ranked prospect, Aiden Miller, and third-ranked prospect, Justin Crawford, as the last two candidates. Although Miller is ranked higher, Crawford, who has elite speed and the potential for plus defense, is in line to earn a spot as the Phillies' starting center fielder in 2026. There are some concerns with his ability to hit for power, but Crawford's skills should allow him to hit for average and provide a bulk of value on the base paths. FanGraphs projects Crawford to play almost 100 games for the Phillies this season compared to just 10 for Miller. Because of that, Crawford is pretty easily the selection here for the Phillies' 2026 breakout player with a WAR projection of 2.4. FanGraphs projects Crawford to accumulate 1.5 WAR, but I think he can surpass that number with his raw athletic abilities leading the way. The New York Mets have reconstructed their roster this offseason in hopes of making a deep playoff run. Last season, they had 2 players meet the breakout requirements, the first being Brett Baty, who accumulated 2.3 WAR in 2025. David Peterson, who was one of the few bright spots in the rotation, was the Mets' other breakout player, accumulating 3.1 WAR across 30 starts. This season, the Mets' best breakout candidates are 3 of their top prospects. The first is Carson Bench, who is projected to get a decent share of the outfield playing time in 2026. Jonah Tong, who is known for his funky delivery and unique pitch characteristics, is another intriguing candidate. The focus here, though, is going to be on the Mets' top prospect, Nolan McLain. McLain had the opportunity to make his MLB debut last season and ended up making 8 starts by the end of the season. In total, he pitched 48 innings with a 2.06 ERA and 57 strikeouts. His whiff rate of 28% was impressive, but what really stuck out was his 30% strikeout rate and 60% ground ball rate. McLain seems like he could do just about anything he wants to the ball, with all 6 of his pitches having strong shapes and characteristics. His sinker, changeup, and curveball all have significantly more vertical drop compared to similar pitches, with his sweeper and curveball both having more horizontal break compared to similar pitches. FanGraphs' Stuff Plus model, which grades pitchers and their individual pitches on a scale where 100 is average, graded McLain at a 117 Stuff Plus. For perspective, this would have been the highest Stuff Plus in all of baseball last year for qualified pitchers. Garrett Crochet and Tarek Skubal both had a 116 Stuff Plus grade, which was the best in the MLB. Each of McLain's pitches on their own also graded out at 100 or more, which means from a pitch characteristic standpoint, not one of his 6 pitches was below average. The best of those pitches was his curveball, which had a 151 Stuff Plus grade. Framber Valdez had the best curveball last year for qualified pitchers on the scale, and his graded out at 128 Stuff Plus. McLain is very clearly the pick for the New York Mets 2026 breakout player with a WAR projection of 3.1. He proved last season that he has the potential to be an elite pitcher, and his underlying metrics support that as well. FanGraphs projects McLain to pitch 145 innings in 2026 with a 1.9 WAR, but I think that is selling him a bit short. They are expecting some major regression from him, which is fair considering how dominant he was, but I think his projected strikeout rate of 22.5% is underselling him, considering he had a 27% strikeout rate or higher at every level he pitched at last year. If McLain can stay healthy, he has a legit chance to be one of the biggest breakout pitchers in the entire MLB in 2026. The Miami Marlins had a bit of a surprising season last year, just barely falling short of a wildcard spot for a team many thought would be near the bottom of the NL East. A large part of this success was due to 3 different players having a breakout season for them in 2025. The first and most impressive breakout player was Kyle Stowers, who put up 4 WAR after a negative WAR in 2024 and a previous career high of .2. Jacob Marcy added 2.2 WAR in his debut season, and Edward Cabrera, who the Marlins traded to the Cubs this offseason, rounds off this list with his first season at the 2 WAR mark. One of the players the Marlins received in return for Cabrera was Owen Casey. Casey will be looking for a Stowers-like breakout in 2026 with his new team and the potential to grow into a bigger role than he might have had with the Cubs. Casey has high power upside with the potential to be a 30-plus home run hitter, but this comes with a high strikeout rate. He does have strong plate discipline skills though, with his walk rate hovering around 13% during his last few seasons in the minor leagues. FanGraphs projects Casey to play almost 100 games and accumulate 1 WAR in 2026, with more opportunities available in the Marlins outfield compared to Chicago. Another breakout hitting candidate on the Marlins is Agustin Ramirez, who had a solid first season offensively in 2025, but provided negative value defensively. Ramirez split time between catcher and DH, but graded out as one of the worst defensive catchers in the league. His underlying numbers on offense are quite impressive though. He ranked in the 89th percentile in bat speed, and did that with a strikeout rate below 20%. His max exit velocity of 116.9 miles per hour was in the top 2% of players, and he did this with an above average pulled air percentage. His ability to pull the ball in the air and hit it hard gives him the potential to hit 30-plus home runs at the catcher position. Although Casey has intriguing upside, the selection for Miami's 2026 breakout player is going to be Agustin Ramirez with a WAR projection of 2.7. FanGraphs projects Ramirez to accumulate 1.4 WAR in 2026, which I think he can surpass if he is able to clean up his defense. FanGraphs also only projects Ramirez to hit 18 home runs, but I think he could truly push towards 30 home runs with what his underlying metrics are showing. He significantly underperformed his expected WOBA, slugging, and batting average in 2025, and I think that he is in line for some positive regression this season. The Atlanta Braves had an underwhelming 2025, finishing 4th in the division and having their first losing record since 2017. Despite their disappointing season, the Braves' lone breakout player, Drake Baldwin, was a major bright spot, accumulating 3.1 WAR on his way to winning National League Rookie of the Year. The Braves have a relatively short list for breakout players in 2026, with 2 starting pitchers being the best options. This pick is going to be between Hurston Waldrop and Grant Holmes. Waldrop was originally going to be the clear selection going into the season, but with a recent report that he is experiencing right elbow discomfort, his availability this season is up in the air. Waldrop had impressive numbers in 2025 with above average metrics in whiff rate, strikeout rate, barrel rate, and ground ball rate. It would be great to see Waldrop on the mound in 2026, but his current injury situation creates a lot of uncertainty. Grant Holmes, who is likely to be slotted as the last pitcher in the rotation, might have a chance to pick up more innings this season because of the injuries in Atlanta's rotation. Holmes is around league average in fastball velocity with a heavy fastball slider mix. His slider was in the 95th percentile for breaking run value in 2025, but overall, his pitches all graded at or below league average in Stuff Plus last season. With that being said, Holmes has a bit of a different look, working mostly north to south, and still managed to strike out over 1 batter per inning in 2025. With minimal options on the roster, Holmes is going to be the selection for the Braves' 2026 breakout player with a WAR projection of 2. FanGraphs projects him to accumulate 1.1 WAR in 129 innings. If he is able to stay healthy, I think that the Braves may need him to throw 150 plus innings in a rotation that has some injury concerns which could boost his value. Since their 2019 World Series championship, the Washington Nationals have finished last in the division 5 of the last 6 seasons. Despite last year being another disappointing last place finish, there was one player who provided hope for the future. James Wood, who is the Nationals' only breakout player in 2025 with a 3.3 WAR, is certainly someone that the Nationals will build around in hopes of getting out of the basement in the NL East. As for 2026, there are 2 Nationals outfielders that are the clear frontrunners to not only have a breakout season, but become part of the core moving forward. The first is Dylan Crews, who Washington selected 2nd overall in the 2023 draft. Crews has struggled to fully settle in at the MLB level, with an injury holding him out for much of last season. That being said, he still is only 23 years old and has great athleticism. His elite sprint speed, which ranked in the 89th percentile last season and 93rd percentile in 2024, helps him create value on the bases and in the field defensively. Crews also has offensive upside with above average bat speed and the potential to hit for power. The other Nationals outfield candidate is Dalen Lyle, who is also just 23 years old. In 2025, Lyle displayed impressive bat-to-ball skills, ranking in the 81st percentile in whiff rate and 82nd percentile in strikeout rate. Additionally, he had the highest expected batting average in the entire MLB. Like Crews, Lyle has speed, ranking in the 92nd percentile last season, but he struggled to translate that speed into value defensively, where he ranked in the 4th percentile. Lyle has a rare profile for a hitter in today's game, but due to the lack of power upside and improvement needed defensively, the pick for the Nationals' 2026 breakout player is going to be Dylan Crews with a WAR projection of 3.2. FanGraphs projects Crews to accumulate 2.1 WAR, but I think he could have an even bigger breakout comparable to that of Ceddanne Rafaela, who put up 3.8 WAR in 2025 with the Boston Red Sox. Similar to Rafaela, Crews has the potential to provide a ton of value defensively while also contributing offensively with pop in his bat and speed on the base paths. The Cleveland Guardians only had 3 players last season surpass the 2 WAR mark, and they all had previously done so in their career. Jose Ramirez led the way with 6.3 WAR, followed by Steven Kwan with 3.2 WAR, and Cade Smith with back-to-back 2.7 WAR seasons out of the bullpen. Although Cleveland did not have any breakout players in 2025, there are a couple of candidates this season who have a chance to reach that mark. The first is Chase DeLauter, who made his MLB debut in the 2025 playoffs during Cleveland's wildcard series against the Detroit Tigers. DeLauter has struggled to stay healthy over the last 2 seasons in the minor leagues, but is Cleveland's #1 prospect heading into the 2026 season. FanGraphs projects DeLauder to accumulate 1.9 WAR as the Guardians' starting center fielder with the potential to be a great all-around hitter. Kyle Manzardo is another position player who could take the next step after putting up 1.2 WAR last season. Manzardo's profile as a hitter does leave a lot to be desired though, with 25th percentile bat speed and a whiff rate and strikeout rate that were both above 25% last season. He did pull the ball in the air at a 24% rate though, which is certainly a positive aspect of his batted ball profile. Manzardo has reportedly added quite a bit of muscle this offseason, which could be beneficial to his bat speed, but with minimal defensive value, his offensive numbers from last season would need to see a significant jump for him to reach 2 WAR. The last Guardians candidate is Joey Cantillo, who has a chance to earn a spot in Cleveland's starting rotation for the 2026 season. Cantillo is coming off a 2025 in which he had a 3.21 ERA and a 3.55 FIP in 95 innings with 108 strikeouts. His fastball velocity was well below average at 91.7 miles per hour, but his 99th percentile extension helps create a higher perceived velocity on the pitch. He is well above average in whiff rate and strikeout rate, with his best swing and miss pitch being his changeup, generating almost a 50% whiff rate. Additionally, his zone contact rate was 7% better than league average, which speaks to the effectiveness of his pitches in the zone. His curveball might be the best of the four, allowing just a .217 WOBA last season with a 24% whiff rate and over 30 inches of vertical separation from his fastball. With all of this information in mind, Joey Cantillo is going to be the pick for the Guardians' 2026 breakout player with a WAR projection of 2.8. FanGraphs projects him to accumulate 1.5 WAR in 144 innings, but I think with the opportunity to pitch that many innings, he should be able to at least surpass the 2 WAR mark. The Detroit Tigers had the most breakout players in the AL Central in 2025, which certainly contributed to their success throughout the season. Dylan Dingler led the group of breakout players with 4.1 WAR, and Zach McKinstry followed with 3.2 WAR. Spencer Torkelson and Casey Mize both managed to put up over 2 WAR for the first time in their careers as well. Kevin McGonigal and Colt Keith are the two main candidates for the Tigers' 2026 breakout player. McGonigal is a top 5 prospect in baseball, known for having one of the best hit tools in the minor leagues. He does not currently have a spot on the Tigers' MLB roster, so unless he forces his way onto the team with some stellar play in spring training, he will likely continue to develop in the minor leagues to start the season. FanGraphs still projects him to reach 2.1 WAR though, with him likely to get promoted later in the season. His ability to reach that mark will truly depend on when he gets called up and if he can produce right away. FanGraphs projects Colt Keith to accumulate 2 WAR in 2026 after compiling 1.7 WAR in 2024 and 1.6 in 2025. Keith drastically improved his walk rate last season, jumping from the 26th percentile with a 6.5% walk rate to the 73rd percentile with a 10.3% walk rate. He also had a 119 WRC+ versus right-handed pitchers, mostly being used as a platoon bat, which will probably continue to be the case this season. Aside from his bat speed, he ranked at or above league average for every metric on Baseball Savant's percentile rankings page. Although FanGraphs projects McGonigal to have a higher WAR, Colt Keith is going to be the pick for the Detroit Tigers' 2026 breakout player with a WAR of 2.4. I think that Keith will play more consistently than McGonigal and have the opportunity to be an impact left-handed bat in Detroit's lineup throughout the entirety of the season. The Kansas City Royals have one of the biggest breakout candidates in the entire MLB for 2026. Jack Caglione, who the Royals selected 6th overall in the 2024 draft, was the number 1 prospect in the organization last year. Caglione is looking to bounce back this season after putting up negative 1.6 WAR in 2025 in his first 62 games at the MLB level. Before making the jump to the majors last year, he hit 20 home runs in 66 games across AA and AAA with a 170 WRC+ and an OPS over 1,000. Although he struggled in the MLB, he did show signs that he has the potential to be a legit power threat. He had one of the top bat speeds in all of baseball, which translates very well to power output, and displayed that by hitting 7 total home runs, including a 2 home run game against the Rangers. Caglione will most likely be a below average defender with minimal outfield range, but has the chance to provide some value with his arm strength, which ranked in the 98th percentile. FanGraphs projects him to accumulate 1.4 WAR in 2026, which would still be a significant jump, but I think a bigger breakout is certainly possible. In 2025, the Royals' lone breakout player was Kris Bubic, who compiled 3.3 WAR with a 2.55 ERA in 116 innings. As for 2026, the clear pick for the Royals' breakout player is Jack Caglianone with a WAR projection of 3.2. Caglianone could realistically hit 30-plus home runs and draw comparisons to Junior Caminero, who has a similar profile. Caminero compiled 4.6 WAR and hit 45 home runs in his 2025 breakout campaign with the Tampa Bay Rays. When comparing metrics from their first two seasons, the similarities are very apparent. Both have top-end bat speed, with the ability to barrel the ball and reach top-end max exit velocities. One of the biggest factors in Caminero's breakout was his ability to pull the ball in the air, going from 14% in 2024 to over 21% in 2025. If Caglianone can make that adjustment as well and have a pulled air percentage of 20% or higher, his home run upside and breakout potential is extremely high. The Minnesota Twins, like the Cleveland Guardians, did not have any breakout players in 2025. That being said, they do have a few strong candidates this season. Zebby Matthews is slated to be in the starting rotation, with FanGraphs projecting him to pitch 124 innings and accumulate 1.9 WAR. Matthews had a 30% chase rate, 27% whiff rate, 25% strikeout rate, and 7% walk rate last season, which were all in the 68th percentile or better. Even with those above-average metrics, he was still not very effective, finishing the season with a 5.56 ERA. It is hard to pinpoint a fix that could propel him to get better results, but he might want to start by throwing his fastball at a lower rate. It was his most used pitch, with a 41% usage, but had the worst results of any of his pitches, with a 4.22 WOBA against. Austin Martin is another breakout option and should get a share of playing time in the Twins' outfield this season. He has a strong hit tool with impressive chase, whiff, strikeout, and walk rates. He has very little power upside though, and is likely an average defender, resulting in FanGraphs projecting him to accumulate 0.9 WAR in 2026. Luke Keeschel, who impressed at the major league level last season, accumulating 1.6 WAR in 49 games, has a similar profile to Martin. He has a strong hit tool and great plate discipline with low power upside. He creates a lot of value as a runner and was able to steal 14 bases with his 85th percentile sprint speed. Keeschel has a higher playing time ceiling than Martin, with no one ahead of him on the second base depth chart. FanGraphs projects him to play 130 games and accumulate exactly 3 WAR in 2026. I am inclined to agree with this projection, which is why Keeschel is a selection for the Minnesota Twins breakout player with a WAR projection of 3. If he is able to continue where he left off last season, he has the potential to be a top 5 second baseman in the MLB. The Chicago White Sox finished in last place in the AL Central for the second season in a row, but did have a couple of players whose performance brightened the outlook for the future. One of those players was Colson Montgomery, who hit 21 home runs in 71 games on his way to a WAR total of 2.7. Starting pitcher Shane Smith also surpassed 2 WAR for the first time in his career, accumulating 2.2 across 29 starts. Kyle Teel and Chase Mydroth, who were a part of the package that came to Chicago in the Garrett Crochet trade, also got their first MLB action last year and are the White Sox top 2 breakout candidates for 2026. Kyle Teel impressed in just under 300 plate appearances with a 786 OPS, 125 WRC+, and 349 WOBA. He could be one of the better offensive catchers in the league, with most of his improvement required behind the plate defensively. Mydroth, on the other hand, was solid defensively at second base in 2025 and should continue to be at or above league average defensively there. His hit tool is easily one of his most impressive skills, rarely swinging and missing or striking out. He ranked in the 88th percentile with a 14.3% strikeout rate and 96th percentile with a 13% whiff rate. He rarely chases as well, ranking in the 84th percentile, and consistently squares the ball up, ranking in the 99th percentile. Although he doesn't chase, he also swings 15% less than league average on pitches in the zone, which could be an area that pitchers take advantage of by working in the zone early and often against him. This side of Mydroth's profile is a bit concerning, which is one of the reasons that he is not the pick for the White Sox 2026 breakout player. Instead, Kyle Teel is the selection with a WAR projection of 4.1, which is the highest up to this point in the series so far. FanGraphs projects him to accumulate 2 WAR, but but I think he can double that total not only because of his offensive upside, but by significantly improving his value defensively at the catcher position. Teal has produced at every level he has played, and I think that trend continues this season as he pushes himself into the conversation of being a top 5 catcher in all of baseball. The Milwaukee Brewers are the standard when it comes to leveraging under-the-radar players. They are a small market team, always trying to find ways to get value at a low cost. In 2025, they had 4 breakout players who reached the 2 WAR threshold for the first time in their career. Sal Frelick led the way with 3.6 WAR, followed by Isaac Collins with 2.6 WAR. Chad Patrick and Caleb Durbin both also added 2.6 WAR. Durbin was traded to Boston in February in exchange for 3 players who the Brewers will most likely attempt to work their magic on and turn them into breakout players in the near future. As for 2026, Milwaukee has a few strong candidates to break out. Jacob Misiorowski is one of the more well-known names in the group after getting a chance to represent the Brewers in the 2025 All-Star Game. Last season, Misiorowski struck out hitters at an elite rate, ranking in the 93rd percentile with a 32% strikeout rate. His fastball was his primary offering with a 50% usage and had good results overall. The pitch's success stems from the combination of its velocity, which ranked in the 99th percentile at 99.3 miles per hour, and Misiorowski's elite extension, which ranked in the 100th percentile. Not only does he throw his fastball hard, but his extension enables the pitch to get on hitters even quicker and have a higher perceived velocity. Among starting pitchers with 60-plus innings in 2025, Misiorowski's fastball had the highest Stuff Plus grade on FanGraphs model with a 122 Stuff Plus. His slider and curveball both also had strong characteristics and graded at 118 and 129 Stuff Plus respectively. Similar to last season, Milwaukee has more than one player capable of breaking out. The rest of the list following Misiorowski consists of a number of candidates, including Garrett Mitchell, Quinn Priester, Andrew Vaughn, David Hamilton, Jet Williams, and Brandon Sproat. Sproat and Williams were the 2 players that New York sent to Milwaukee in exchange for Freddie Peralta this offseason. Sproat is not necessarily in line to garner enough innings in the Brewers' rotation to reach 2 WAR in 2026, but he does have intriguing upside. Williams, on the other hand, could see a fair amount of playing time in the Brewers' infield with his combination of speed and power, which propelled him to steal 34 bases and hit 17 home runs in the minor leagues last season. David Hamilton was one of the key pieces in the Caleb Durbin trade and profiles very well as a player the Brewers will love to have in their lineup. Hamilton should provide average or slightly above average defense in the infield, with most of his value coming on the base paths. He has elite speed, ranking in the 95th percentile, which enabled him to steal 55 bases across his last 2 seasons in Boston. The Brewers are known for their excellent base running as a team, which is why it feels like Hamilton should get a decent share of playing time with the impact he can provide in that area. Andrew Vaughn exploded at the plate last season for the Brewers after being traded by the Chicago White Sox. In 48 games with the White Sox, he had a .531 OPS and a negative 1.3 WAR. With his new team, though, he compiled 1.9 WAR in 64 games with an .869 OPS. This turnaround resulted in his peripheral stats looking quite impressive by the end of the regular season. Garrett Mitchell and Quinn Priester both had 1.9 WAR seasons previously in their career. Although they have decent upside to surpass 2 WAR in 2026 and would technically meet the requirements set for a breakout, it does not feel like a big enough jump to select them here. With all of that being said, Jacob Misiorowski is going to be the pick for the Milwaukee Brewers 2026 breakout player with a WAR projection of 2.5. Misiorowski has elite stuff with very high potential to grow into a future ace. The biggest factor for him will be his ability to stay healthy, and if he does that this season, I think a breakout is inevitable. Unlike the Brewers, the Chicago Cubs list of breakout candidates is much smaller, considering how many players they have in their lineup that have already reached the 2 WAR threshold. Matt Shaw is the first candidate after putting up 1.5 WAR in his rookie season. Shaw's potential playing time took a significant hit though when the Cubs signed Alex Bregman this offseason. Additionally, his profile as a hitter is a bit underwhelming with slow bat speed and an average exit velocity in the 3rd percentile. Because of that, and question marks surrounding his playing time, his chance to reach 2 WAR and have a breakout season is very small. Moises Ballesteros is the Cubs' other breakout candidate. Ballesteros comes with some holes in his game as well, but his offensive potential does provide intrigue. He has pretty good plate discipline with a lower strikeout rate to go along with a strong hit tool and decent power. Ballesteros is projected to be the Cubs' primary DH this season, which certainly helps his playing time upside. In 2025, the Cubs' lone breakout player was Cade Horton, who finished in second place for NL Rookie of the Year with a 2.67 ERA across 118 innings, accumulating 2.2 WAR. As for 2026, Moises Ballesteros is the pick for the Chicago Cubs breakout player with a WAR projection right at 2. I'm not super confident in this pick, especially with FanGraphs projecting him at just 0.5 WAR, but with how deep the Cubs depth chart is, there are very few breakout options, and Ballesteros appears to have the highest offensive upside of the group. Despite clawing into the last National League wildcard spot in 2025, the Cincinnati Reds did not have any breakout players. In 2026 though, there are a couple of strong candidates that can not only propel them to reach the playoffs in back-to-back seasons, but potentially help them win a playoff series should they make it. The Reds' top two candidates are Sal Stort and Chase Burns. In 2025, Burns pitched 43 innings and made 8 total starts. In 4 of those 8 starts, he struck out 10 batters, almost exclusively using a fastball and slider combination. Burns has electric stuff, with his fastball averaging 98.7 miles per hour and over 18 inches of vertical break. His slider complemented that pitch very well and had over a 43% whiff rate. These two pitches enabled him to have an elite combination of chase and whiff, which resulted in over a 35% strikeout rate. He has also deepened his arsenal for 2026 with reports of a much improved changeup and curveball. Sal Stort was another Reds' top prospect to debut last season, and although it was only a 58 plate appearance sample, his metrics were quite impressive. Before being called up in September, he hit 20 home runs in the minor leagues with a 9% walk rate and 15% strikeout rate. He added 5 more home runs in the last month of the season with Cincinnati, hitting the ball hard at an elite rate. Stort is slated to be the Reds' opening day first baseman, with FanGraphs projecting him to accumulate 1.5 WAR across 117 games. It is very likely that Burns breaks out in 2026, with FanGraphs projecting him to accumulate 2.5 WAR. That being said, he dealt with a right flexor strain in his throwing elbow last August, and despite making a return in September, I am a bit hesitant about his health outlook for 2026. For that reason, and Sal Stort's upside at first base, Stort is a selection for the Cincinnati Reds 2026 breakout player with a WAR projection of 2.2. He might have some growing pains in his first full MLB season, but I think that Stort should be able to settle in and have a breakout 2026 campaign. The St. Louis Cardinals are in full rebuild mode, which provides potential for some breakout candidates in 2026. Many of their recent prospect acquisitions have come on the pitching side, but the focus here will be on a few of their young position players. J.J. Weatherholt is currently the most hyped Cardinals prospect, and rightfully so, having a strong hit tool and a good balance of power, speed, and defense to accompany it. Weatherholt is the Cardinals' #1 prospect and has a high likelihood of making the opening day roster. There are some doubts about his ability to stick at shortstop, but that really isn't much of a concern considering St. Louis has Mason Wynn, who is one of the best defensive shortstops in the league. If Weatherholt truly profiles better at second base, that's great, because most of his opportunities in 2026 will come at that position anyways. Weatherholt displayed his offensive abilities across AA and AAA last season, finishing with a combined 17 home runs, 23 stolen bases, and 306, 421, 510 triple slash line, good for a 931 OPS. On top of that, he had nearly a 1-to-1 walk to strikeout ratio with 72 walks and 73 strikeouts. Regardless of the level of competition, that plate discipline is impressive and should translate very well at the major league level. FanGraphs projects him to accumulate 2.6 WAR this season in 125 games, which would certainly be great value from a rookie. 2 other Cardinals candidates for 2026 are Jordan Walker and Victor Scott. Scott is pretty underwhelming offensively aside from his base stealing abilities, with most of his value coming from his elite center field defense. He was one of the best defensive center fielders in 2025, and that alone could help propel him over the 2 WAR threshold this season. For him to fully break out though, he will need to provide more value offensively and increase his batting average, which would give him more opportunities to use his elite speed to impact the game on the bases. Jordan Walker has almost the complete opposite hitting profile compared to Scott, at least in terms of bat speed, where he ranked in the 99th percentile last season. The biggest problem Walker has struggled with throughout his career so far is capitalizing on his power potential. He consistently chases, whiffs, and strikes out at a very high rate, which has really hampered his ability to provide any sort of value with the bat. Although his bat speed, max exit velocity, and average exit velocity are all eye-popping, he simply does not put the ball in play enough for it to really matter. Last season, Alec Burleson was the Cardinals' only breakout player, splitting time between outfield, first base, and DH on his way to accumulating 2.1 WAR. In 2026, JJ Weatherholt is going to be the clear-cut breakout player for the St. Louis Cardinals with a WAR projection of 3.7. This may seem a bit ambitious, but his ability to impact the game in many ways will allow him to create a ton of value in his first season at the MLB level. The Pittsburgh Pirates only had 2 players surpass 2 WAR last season. Paul Skeens led the way with 6.5 WAR, and Mitch Keller added 2.5 WAR. It is no exaggeration that Skeens had very little help from the Pirates' offense last season, which ranked 28th in OPS as a team. The Pirates attempted to address that major hole on their team this offseason by acquiring a few bats in an attempt to improve their lineup. Despite that, they still rank as a bottom 10 team in projected hitter WAR and total WAR. The Pirates' best breakout candidates this season are their top 2 prospects. Connor Griffin, who is not only the Pirates' top prospect but the number 1 prospect in all of baseball, has superstar potential and is thought to be a 5-tool player. If those skills translate to the majors, Griffin will have the potential to provide significant value, especially at the shortstop position. He hit 21 home runs and stole 65 bases across 3 minor league levels last season, finishing with a 941 OPS. At just 19 years old, it remains to be seen how patient the Pirates will be before they promote Griffin, but it might not take long for him to make his way to Pittsburgh and immediately slot in as the starting shortstop. Pittsburgh's top pitching prospect, Bubba Chandler, made his MLB debut last season with some impressive peripherals across 31 total innings. Chandler's fastball velocity was elite, ranking in the 98th percentile at 98.9 miles per hour. He also has consistently been able to strike out over 1 batter per inning in the minor leagues, which is likely to continue in the majors, where he had a 25% strikeout rate last season. FanGraphs projects Chandler to accumulate 1.9 WAR in 2026, but I think he can push that projection and reach the 2 WAR threshold. With that being said, Connor Griffin is still going to be the Pirates' 2026 breakout selection with a WAR projection of 2.8. Although there are still some questions around when he will get called up, I think it is inevitable that he gets the call at some point early in the 2026 season, which should still give him enough time to be able to surpass his FanGraphs WAR projection of 2.5. The Pirates desperately need help on offense, and I don't think it will take very long for that desperation to result in them turning to Connor Griffin. The Seattle Mariners had one of the best core groups in 2025, which helped them win the AL West and come 1 win short of a World Series appearance. The strength and experience of their core resulted in them not having any breakout players last season, which could honestly be the case again this year. Cole Emerson is one of their best young prospects and could possibly push J.P. Crawford off of shortstop in the near future. He had exactly 600 plate appearances in the minor leagues last season, with a combined 16 home runs, 14 stolen bases, and a 285, 383, 458 triple slash line. He has a good chance of seeing major league action this season, but he appears to be more of a 2027 breakout candidate without a defined role on this year's team as of right now. Dominic Canzone had the best season of his career in 2025, hitting .300 with a .358 on-base percentage and .481 slugging percentage. Canzone is more of a platoon bat versus righties, which will probably continue to be the case this season, especially with the addition of Rob Refsnyder, who was brought in specifically for his platoon ability against lefties. That being said, Canzone had impressive peripherals overall, with good bat speed, and even managed to put up a 113 WRC plus against left-handed pitching last season to accompany a 150 WRC plus against righties. The Mariners' last breakout candidate is Cole Young, who is projected to get the most playing time at second base on Seattle's current depth chart. Young made his MLB debut last year, but put up negative .3 WAR in 77 games. He is only 22 years old though, and there appears to be clear upside with his strong approach at the plate. His bat speed leaves a bit to be desired, but despite that, he did manage to hit a 456-foot home run last season with a 114.1 mile/hour exit velocity. If he can continue to develop in that area and hit the ball hard more consistently, he could provide power upside in the future. The main area of growth for Young has to come defensively though if he is going to provide value and become an everyday infielder for the Mariners. He ranked in the 11th percentile last season for fielding run value with 4th percentile arm strength and range. Although Young struggled defensively, he still projects to be an above average defender, and I think that will start to come into fruition this season. Even though Cole Emerson might provide the highest upside of these three, and Dominic Canzone has the best results so far at the major league level, Cole Young is the selection for the Seattle Mariners 2026 breakout player with a WAR projection of 2. FanGraphs projects Young to play in 91 games and accumulate 1.4 WAR, but I think with the opportunity to win the second base job, he can push that playing time up a bit and surpass this WAR projection. The Houston Astros had 3 players in 2025 reach the 2 WAR mark for the first time in their career. Brian Abreu dominated hitters out of the bullpen, accumulating 2.2 WAR, which ranked 3rd in the MLB for relievers. Although the jump was not very big, Jake Myers reached 2 WAR for the first time in his career as the Astros center fielder. The last breakout player was Mauricio Dubon, who Houston traded to Atlanta this offseason after his 2.2 WAR season. As for 2026, there is one pitcher and one position player who are both great candidates to break out. The position player is Cam Smith, who was the biggest piece in the Kyle Tucker trade with the Chicago Cubs. Smith made his debut for the Astros last season at 22 years old, and although there were some growing pains, he has some serious upside. He is a very athletic outfielder with 95th percentile sprint speed, 88th percentile arm strength, and 84th percentile bat speed. His biggest weakness last year was his 27.8% strikeout rate, which ranked in the 8th percentile. He was around league average in zone contact rate and chase rate though, which leads me to believe he can improve his strikeout issues. The main problem with his strikeouts lie within his miss rate on pitches out of the zone, so if he can hone in on his approach this year, after a full season of exposure last year, I think his strikeout rate will improve. Smith should also continue to provide significant value in the outfield defensively and on the bases with his elite speed. The Astros' breakout pitching candidate is Spencer Arrighetti, who missed most of last season with injuries but impressed in his rookie campaign. Arrighetti has a lead extension and a lower arm angle at 25 degrees. This combination, along with his 5-pitch mix, propelled him to strike out hitters at a 27% rate in 2024. In his rookie season, his fastball, slider, and curveball all had above average stuff plus, which gives hope for 2026 as long as he can return to his pre-injury form. FanGraphs projects him to only accumulate 0.5 WAR in 2026 across 86 innings, but if he can stay healthy, he should surpass the 100 inning mark and push up that WAR total. That being said, Cam Smith is going to be the selection for the Houston Astros 2026 breakout player with a WAR projection of 2.9. FanGraphs projects him to only accumulate 1.1 WAR, but I think that is selling him a bit short. I'm very optimistic about his ability to make adjustments at the plate in his sophomore season and not only produce with his bat, but add value both defensively and on the base paths. The Texas Rangers were decimated by injuries last season, which resulted in them coming up short for the last American League wildcard spot. They did still manage to have one of the best starting pitching staffs in 2025, and their only breakout player was a big reason for it. Jack Leiter accumulated 2.3 WAR in his first full season at the major league level, finishing with a 3.86 ERA in just over 150 innings. As for 2026, the Rangers' best candidate to break out is Evan Carter. Carter has dealt with injuries over the last few seasons and only managed to compile just over 450 plate appearances. The good news is that he is only 23 years old and has shown promise when he is on the field. One of Carter's best abilities is his speed, which ranked in the 90th percentile last season and was probably even lowered a bit by injuries, considering his 2023 and 2024 sprint speed ranked in the 97th percentile. In addition to his speed, Carter has good plate discipline and is elite in terms of not chasing out of the zone. He does not provide a lot in the power department, but profiles as a strong hitter overall, especially for a center fielder who can provide plus defense. Evan Carter is the pick for the Texas Rangers 2026 breakout player with a WAR projection of 2.6. FanGraphs projects Carter to accumulate 1.9 WAR, but he seems like he can fit the mold of a 2+ WAR player, with the biggest determining factor being his ability to stay healthy. If he can finally push aside the injury bug and put together a full season for the Rangers, a breakout is certainly in the cards. In 2025, the Athletics had 3 of the best young breakout players in the entire MLB. The most notable was Nick Kurtz, who had one of the greatest rookie seasons ever and took home Rookie of the Year after hitting 36 home runs and compiling 4.6 WAR. Jacob Wilson, who was in the Rookie of the Year race himself, accumulated 3.5 WAR. Tyler Soderstrom rounded out the group of breakout players for the Athletics with his 3.4 WAR season. In total, the Athletics' 3 2025 breakout players combined for 11.5 WAR, which was nothing short of impressive. In 2026, it will be hard for one of their players to have a breakout of that nature, let alone 3, but they do have a couple of candidates who are intriguing. Denzel Clark is the first and put his name on the map last season with one of the most impressive catches of the entire year. Clark can play elite center field defense, and that alone should give him a good runway to earn the starting job in 2026. He struck out 38% of the time last season in 159 plate appearances, but he should be able to bring that closer to 30% across an entire season. He has good bat speed and showed he can translate that to power output when he hit a 471-foot home run in July. Clark needs to make improvements offensively, but the raw tools are there and could help him become an everyday major leaguer. Jacob Lopez is a pitching candidate that I like, who displayed really strong metrics in 2025. Despite having a fastball velocity in the 8th percentile and not throwing very hard overall, Lopez's combination of extension and arm angle is a bit funky and helps him create deception. He was elite at generating weak contact last season, ranking in the 94th percentile in hard hit rate and average exit velocity. He also managed to get hitters to whiff and strike out at a 28.3% rate, which ranked in the 73rd and 85th percentile respectively. Although Lopez's metrics pop off the page, I don't feel very confident in his ability to break out in 2026. A flexor strain in his forearm ended his 2025 season, and although he is reportedly back at full health this spring, the arm injury is a bit concerning. The Athletics also play in one of the least pitcher-friendly ballparks in baseball, which speaks for itself. With that in mind, the selection for the Athletics' 2026 breakout player is Denzel Clark, with a WAR projection of 3.1. FanGraphs projects Clark to only accumulate 1.3 WAR this season, but I'm really high on his potential to be one of the best defensive center fielders in the MLB. In 2025, Jose Siriano was the Los Angeles Angels' lone breakout player, throwing 169 innings and accumulating 3 WAR. When I look at the 2026 Angels roster, it is a bit overwhelming. Although they are rebuilding, it feels like they have no true direction. Take a look at their depth chart. There are so many names who are vying for playing time, with very few established roles on this team. Zach Neto, Logan O'Hoppe, Joe Adell, and Nolan Schanuel are the only 4 players that appear to be solidified as starters in 2026. The rest of the roster consists of a group of young players competing for playing time in hopes of establishing themselves, along with a number of veteran players who are, by default, taking away potential playing time from the younger players. Considering these circumstances, there could be a number of breakout candidates on this team, but without knowing which young players the Angels are going to give a legit chance in 2026, it feels impossible to select a breakout player from a group that consists of Matthew Lugo, Christian Moore, Kyron Paris, Vaughn Grissom, Denzer Guzman, and Nelson Rada. Because of this, Nolan Schanuel is the only player I feel will get enough playing time to have a breakout season. He is going to be the pick for the Los Angeles Angels 2026 breakout player with a WAR projection of 2. FanGraphs projects him to accumulate 1.7 WAR, which is fair with the profile he has for a first baseman. His bat speed is near the bottom of the league, which hurts his home run and power potential. He does have strong plate discipline and bat-to-ball skills, which he will need to leverage to push his batting average up in an attempt to provide more value than he has in previous seasons. The Angels' current situation is tough to say the least, and maybe some of the young players that I mentioned will break out in 2026, but for now, the future outlook is a bit bleak. The Los Angeles Dodgers are coming off of their second straight World Series win and are absolutely looking for a 3rd consecutive title. Their breakout players from 2025, Andy Pages, who had 4.1 WAR, and Emmett Sheehan, who accumulated 2.1 WAR, certainly contributed to last year's run. The Dodgers have a few candidates this season who could have a similar impact and break out in 2026. Dalton Rushing is a solid up-and-coming catcher who could certainly provide value for the Dodgers this season with his intriguing profile as a hitter. Unless Will Smith goes down with an injury though, which is unlikely considering he has played 110 plus games every season for the last 5 years, Rushing's playing time upside tops out as a backup catcher. The 2 best breakout candidates on the pitching side are River Ryan and Roki Sasaki. Sasaki dealt with injuries in 2025, but returned for the Dodgers World Series run and was effective out of the bullpen. One of the reasons for that was because his fastball velocity saw a major jump and created deception when paired with his unicorn of a splitter. This season, the plan is for him to return to the rotation, but ultimately I think he is still best suited as a reliever. His fastball tends to lose effectiveness when he pitches as a starter because it does not have the best movement profile, and its velocity drops when he has to pitch longer throughout games. He has been working on a gyro slider this spring to accompany his fastball and splitter, but I am not confident that this addition will be enough to push him towards being a two-WAR player. River Ryan, who has been impressive this spring, looks like he will get a chance to be part of the Dodgers rotation to start the season. FanGraphs projects him to only pitch 47 innings though and accumulate .3 WAR. There are a few reasons that I think these projections are a bit low, starting with the overall health of the Dodgers pitching staff. Blake Snell's timeline for this season is unknown, and even when he does return, his injury history is not the best, so his 132 projected innings could be a bit high. Shohei Ohtani hasn't pitched a full season since 2023, so his 116 inning projection could always come down a bit to manage his workload. Tyler Glasnow has had extensive injury issues throughout his career, and although Emmett Sheehan had a great 2025 season, he needed surgery to repair a partially torn UCL in 2024. It would be ignorant of me to ignore River Ryan's vast injury history after going through all of the other pitchers in the Dodgers rotation, but I think that this is the season he can finally be healthy and take on a larger workload. If we take off 15 projected innings from every Dodgers pitcher I mentioned and give them to Ryan, that gets him 60 extra innings, putting him around 110 innings for the 2026 season. To show what this could do for Ryan, I'm using a tool that projects a pitcher's WAR, which was created by Lance Brozdowski and is linked in the description. If we put in FanGraphs projected numbers, it gets us around the .3 WAR projection they have. I think that we can get him to the 2 WAR threshold though, starting by bumping his innings up to 110. Next, we can lower his home runs per 9, which I think is certainly reasonable with his high ground ball rate. I also think that his projected strikeout rate is low and he could push towards the 25% range, which gets us to that 2 WAR number. With all of this in mind, River Ryan is the selection for the Los Angeles Dodgers 2026 breakout player with a WAR projection of 2. The Dodgers always seem to find a way to get value from pitchers in their organization, and I believe that Ryan will continue this trend. The San Diego Padres fell short in the playoffs last season, and with a roster full of expensive veterans, the future appears to be a bit daunting. In 2025, Adrian Morejon was one of the most valuable relievers in the MLB and the Padres' only breakout player, accumulating 2.2 WAR out of the bullpen. The depth of candidates for San Diego's 2026 breakout player is a bit weak as well. Freddie Fermin, who is primed to be the starting catcher this season, has the best chance to reach 2 WAR for Padres players that have previously not done so in their career. This breakout pick would be a bit boring though, considering Fermin is a veteran catcher who has already reached 1.9 WAR twice in his career and is projected to reach 2.1 WAR this season. Sun Moon Song is joining the Padres after 9 seasons in the KBO, but the caveat here is that there is usually an adjustment period to acclimate to the higher level of competition in the MLB. Although he was a solid player in the KBO, I am not necessarily confident in his ability to immediately produce in San Diego. That leaves a very deep cut for the Padres' last breakout candidate. Miguel Mendez, who is the 3rd ranked prospect in San Diego's organization, had the best season of his minor league career in 2025. Across 3 levels, Mendez pitched 95 innings, tallied 118 strikeouts, and finished with a 3.22 ERA. This success resulted in San Diego adding him to the 40-man roster, but he is still slated to start the 2026 season in AA. Mendez is only 23 years old, and although his MLB ETA is set for 2026, it is unknown whether he will pitch in the majors this season. It may be a long shot, but Miguel Mendez is going to be the selection for the San Diego Padres 2026 breakout player with a WAR projection of 2. I'm not very confident he will actually reach that projection, but I'm trying to have a bit more fun with this pick, especially with the lack of options available. His scouting report says that his fastball sits 95 to 98 miles per hour and occasionally reaches triple digits. It has explosive carrying life that helps keep it above bats in the upper portion of the zone. His slider is in the mid-80s and is a similarly dynamite weapon that plays off of his fastball and forces righties to lunge late. Mendez was also able to cut his walk rate from 14.9% in 2024 to 11.2% last season. His scouting report sparked my interest because it shows that he not only has the ability to improve, but has a dynamic fastball and slider combination which have the potential to help him succeed at the highest level. The San Francisco Giants had a relatively middle-of-the-road 2025 season, finishing third in the NL West with an 81-81 record. Their lone breakout player was Jung-Ho Lee, who accumulated 2.4 WAR and should continue to be a productive outfielder for them this season. San Francisco's number one prospect, Bryce Eldridge, has real breakout potential at just 21 years old. Eldridge hit 25 home runs in 102 games across AA and AAA last season and has legit raw power, which could propel him to be a 30-plus home run hitter in the future. The main downside is his high strikeout rate, but he hits the ball hard, and because of that, it might not take long for him to become a middle-of-the-order bat in the Giants lineup. On the pitching side, Landon Roop has the best upside in terms of usage, with FanGraphs projecting him to pitch 126 innings, but I'm not sure I can see him making the jump to 2 WAR in 2026. Blade Tidwell, Trevor McDonald, and Hayden Birdsong are the other 3 pitchers on my radar. Birdsong is dealing with forearm discomfort this spring though, so it is unlikely he will pitch enough to break out this season. McDonald appears to be better suited for the bullpen, where I think he would thrive as a specialist versus righties with his heavy sinker and slider mix. That leaves Blade Tidwell, who probably has the highest upside of the group, but I'm struggling to see where he finds enough innings in this Giants rotation to accumulate 2 WAR. Despite there being more options on the pitching side, Bryce Eldridge still appears to be the best breakout option and is going to be the pick for the San Francisco Giants 2026 breakout player with a WAR projection of 2. FanGraphs only projects him to accumulate 0.3 WAR, with minimal defensive impact and almost all of his value relying heavily on him translating his raw power into damage. Should he find a way to strike out less and put more balls into play though, that power could be enough to fuel a breakout 2026 campaign. The Arizona Diamondbacks finished the 2025 regular season 2 games under 500 and did not have any players meet the breakout requirements. In 2026, their list of breakout candidates is relatively short, but they do have 2 intriguing outfielders. Jordan Lawler is a player the Diamondbacks hope take a major step forward this season after a string of injuries over the past 2 years limited him to less than 100 plate appearances in the MLB. He is still just 23 years old and set to make a transition from shortstop to center field, where his 98th percentile sprint speed could potentially help him be a valuable defender. Lawler had very high upside with his bat as a prospect, so if he can remain healthy, this year could be his chance to finally break out. Ryan Waldschmidt is currently the Diamondbacks' top-ranked prospect and is expected to debut this season. Although he is starting in AA, he has the tools that could force the Diamondbacks to call him up early, and if that happens, he could take on a major role in the outfield right away. Waldschmidt hit 18 home runs and stole 29 bases across 134 minor league games last year, displaying strong skills in multiple areas. His profile is just that, a well-rounded outfielder who has power potential and could certainly be an MLB regular very soon. Lawler is probably the safer breakout pick between these two, with him likely to be the starting center fielder on opening day. His injury history leaves me with a bit of hesitation though, and I am intrigued by Waldschmidt's upside. For that reason, Ryan Waldschmidt is the pick for the Arizona Diamondbacks 2026 breakout player with a WAR projection of 2.1. It might be a bit ambitious to think he can reach that mark this season, especially considering he has not even reached the majors yet. Despite that, I think the well-roundedness of his game will enable him to provide value in multiple areas and accumulate 2+ WAR even if he plays in less than 100 games for the Diamondbacks in 2026. The Colorado Rockies finished last in the NL West for the 4th consecutive season. They did have one of the better breakout players in 2025 though, with Hunter Goodman accumulating 3.4 WAR after putting up negative 1.2 WAR in 2024. Goodman was one of the only bright spots for the Rockies last season, but this year they have 2 strong candidates who could break out and provide some more hope for the future. Charlie Condon, the Rockies' first-round pick in 2024, could be in a position to make his major league debut at some point in 2026. Condon is a solid all-around hitter who has big power potential and was one of the best college hitters in 2024. His 37 home runs and 1565 OPS in 60 games for Georgia shot him up draft boards. He dealt with a wrist injury to start the 2025 season, which likely limited his production, but he still managed to hit 14 home runs across 99 games in the minor leagues. The Rockies' other breakout candidate is right fielder Jordan Beck, who's going into his 3rd MLB season. Beck made clear improvements from 2024 to 2025, going from negative 1 WAR to 0.9 WAR. He has the chance to make yet another jump in 2026 and continue his growth. Beck whiffed and struck out at a high rate, but did improve his zone contact and chase rate last season, so I do not think it is out of the question that he can build upon that this year. I also think he has the potential to grow defensively in the outfield with good speed and arm strength, which could push him towards contributing positive value in that area. His bat speed improved 2 miles per hour from 2023 to 2024, and I would not be surprised to see him unlock more power in 2026 to help him push past 20 home runs, especially in a hitter-friendly environment like Coors Field. Although Charlie Condon has intriguing upside, Jordan Beck is going to be the pick for the Colorado Rockies 2026 breakout player with a WAR projection of 2.5. FanGraphs projects him to accumulate 0.6 WAR, but I think he can make strides to improve his game defensively and continue growing as a hitter, which will unlock another level for him this season. If you made it to this point in the video, thanks for sticking around. I will be posting videos consistently throughout the 2026 MLB season and have some cool stuff in store, so make sure to subscribe to keep up with all of the new content. Enjoy the start of the 2026 baseball season, and as always, thanks for watching.